Bienvenidos. What's happening? What's up? Welcome to another episode of Mindful LCA. Today we're talking about anxiety. It stresses me out.
And it stresses me out, actually. I am experiencing some of it as we speak. I'm literally sweating. So um, it's good that we are talking. Oops, that we're talking about it today.
hmm Let's get into it. Straight to it today. We're going to leave the announcements for the end.
Okay. Not even like our
Oh,
mission
yes,
statement or
that's right.
anything.
That's right.
I'm like,
Just how
not
you doing?
even
We'll leave the
that.
mission statement at the end. We'll do it at the end.
Everything at the
How
end.
you doing? How you doing? How you doing? Let's do that one
Okay.
first. That one always works.
I'm anxious. I'm anxious. Literally anxious as we speak.
Oh, it fits the episode.
Yes, very much so.
Nice. You're going to teach us how you work through your anxiety, talking about anxiety.
Yes, yes. um So, anxiety is something that many of us experience. Um, right now, the anxiety that I'm feeling is called for, if you will, because it is myself in front of a camera. Like the professional. So there is a specific situation that is making me anxious. Um, so, anxiety is a normal human emotion. Everybody experiences anxiety. It is a survival mechanism. So if at some point you have an anxious moment, there's nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly okay human. It's just something that your body goes through.
hmm
When it becomes a disorder, and today we're just going to be talking about generalized anxiety, because there is a lot of different categories or subcategories of anxiety, but today we're only going to be talking about just like generalized. Um,
Yep.
so anxiety helps us as an emotion. It helps us with managing threats. Now, when it gets hijacked, when our brain gets hijacked by anxiety, and you experience it after certain amount of time, and we'll talk about the criteria right now, then that's when it becomes a disorder. Okay, some of the symptoms. There's physical symptoms, like me. My hands are sweating, my armpits are sweating, feeling kind of hot. My heartbeat is it's a little bit faster. So all of those are physical symptoms. You can also get dizzy. Um, you can get headaches. You can feel
hmm
nauseous. Actually, also feeling a little bit nauseous. Um, Shortness of breath. Yes, those are
Yeah.
some of the physical symptoms that your
Yeah. So
body.
I've had anxiety or had high levels of anxiety for all my life, not even knowing what they were. Once I learned about those symptoms, for me it was stomach, like stomach discomfort, like a stomach pain,
Mm,
and then it was palpitations that I used to get a lot. Then the hot, like getting hot,
mhm.
like it was just that. Oh, and then another thing that I caught myself paying attention to the shit is like I swallow saliva. So like when I do that, it's like shit. Okay, there's something. I was like, what is happening? Like that's like a sign that I pay attention to. Like, okay, what was happening? Why am I stressed out? Why am I anxious about that?
Yeah.
I think those were the main ones. I can't. I mean, obviously the fucking jitteriness too, like having a lot of energy or like just wanting to
Mhm,
move and all that.
mhm.
Was that? I mean, on higher levels of anxiety, it was the fight or flight, right? It was just
Mhm.
wanting to get the fuck out and like move and leave the situation or just get up and move and get rid of that energy or just fucking move. That was
Yes.
when it was more on a higher level.
Yes. Yeah. Like right now that you're talking about, like I do feel for whatever reason, the as I swallow, the saliva is like thicker. So it gets like harder to swallow. And I don't know, even you might be able to like hear it within my voice. It sounds almost like raspy.
hmm
It's not a like smooth as maybe other times, because
Yeah.
I'm right now I'm like, tengo miedo.
It happens. Yeah, and there's other ones that like I'm becoming like I came aware to, like when I grab my beard specifically here, like when I'm stroking here, there's something that is bothering me. There's something. This is not
That's a
my
behavior
tension.
change though.
Just like this. Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I mean, like it's still. I guess I see it as a symptom because I don't normally do this. And when I'm
Mm,
doing this, to me, it seems like there's something going on when I'm just doing
mhm.
this. And those are
Yes.
the ones that I'm aware of because my wife can just look at me and be like, "You're having trouble, aren't you?" Just by I don't know how the fuck she knows. She just looks at me and she's like, "There's something off" and shit like that. Oh, one other thing that I do is I get really quiet,
Mm,
and I'm not fucking quiet at all, as you know. So I get quiet, and then when I'm just quiet, that means there's something other than like my natural state. I might be upset, I might be anxious, something else. So those are just a little bit of how their behavior and how I notice even in those ways that like okay there's something maybe I need to address because sometimes
mhm,
I'm not aware of what's happening but I catch myself here and I'm like oh
mhm.
shit there's something there you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know you don't have hair over here, so it makes sense why you do it.
yeah,
I
of
play with my
course,
hair
yeah.
a lot. If I'm anxious, like I will play with my hair a lot. When I used to have like long hair, like I would just be like stroking it all the time, but I don't have as much anymore. But that is one thing that I do. Another thing that I do that I notice when I'm anxious, like the other day I was talking about finances with my brother
Mhm.
and money. Talking about money makes me anxious. So I like bit my nails off. My nails are like very short. I don't know if you
Well
can
that's
see.
another one too.
Yes.
I've done it all my life.
Yes. Yes. I bite my. So, yes. So some of but those are like more behavioral ones. Like physical
Yeah.
symptoms is like things that your body does um, without
Mhm.
you having to like do it. I don't know how to explain it.
Like
Like
an emotion, kind of like it just does it.
yeah, it just does it. Your body just
Mhm.
does it.
Like something you don't control yourself I guess.
Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
There's also the mental aspect. So it is difficult concentrating, very irritable, the fatigue, the racing thoughts. Like I literally had it this morning. I I woke up like at 5 in the morning because, as y'all know, I have sleeping issues. I woke up at like 5. I couldn't go back to bed, and then I'm like, oh shit, I have to get up in a little bit to go run. Okay, and have to do 7 miles. I don't know why, like that number seems like so daunting to me. I was like, oh my God, I have to do like 7 miles. That's an hour and a half. And I just started like going, but I have to be back. But this time because um uh, and I forgot about the podcast today because I'm like, I have to be back because my dad is here. So then we're gonna have breakfast. Okay, but I don't have clients until 4. Today's Thursday. Oh my God, today's Thursday. Like I literally opened my eyes. I'm like, today's Thursday. I have the podcast. Holy shit. So if I do go run at 7, will I be back? Like my brain just like did this thing, and I could not fall back asleep for the life of me.
Yeah,
Those are racing thoughts, y'all. If your brain does that, you're experiencing racing thoughts.
yeah.
Um, irritability because I couldn't go back to sleep because I couldn't slow my brain down. I was fucking pissed. I'm like, bro, it is 5.
You have a
That's
ghost.
my that's a ghost. That's a little ghost.
The little dogs.
Chanchito, that's my doggo. My sister's doggo. But so I get mad at the fact that I cannot stop my brain from doing its thing and I can't fall back asleep and I'm tired. I'm just like, I hate this. So
Mhm.
irritability is very common
Yeah.
with
Yeah,
anxiety.
definitely. When I had those high levels of anxiety too in the past, that was like a thing that couldn't stop. It was always like fucking just going and going and going and going, like 100 fucking miles an hour, just constantly going, going, all that shit. Um, I mean, obviously with the yeah, I'll talk. We'll talk about the other shit afterwards. But yeah, that was another thing that I experienced. Yeah, it definitely happens, and it was hard to stop when it was going before I had the
Mhm.
tools to kind of make it better or to kind of
Yeah,
understand it.
yeah, it is definitely difficult. Um, so, and behavior changes, you can avoid activities. Like, for example, today, like I wanted to like write stuff down of what I wanted to talk about, but then my brain was like, no, let's like change our earrings up. So I'm like
Mhm.
changing those things instead of
Uh-huh.
doing the task that is going to give me more anxiety.
Uh-huh.
So you will avoid the thing that gives you anxiety so you won't experience it. Um, yes, so a lot of avoiding activities, nail biting, pacing back and forth, pressured speech, like you tend to speak faster
Hmm.
when you're anxious. So those are some behavioral changes. They're not this list, any of the lists that we're giving you, they're not exhaustive. Like there is
There's an endless amount. Yeah.
endless amount of shit that you
People experience it differently. Yeah, that avoidant thing is also like very real for me. Because I want to say most of it at some point before I had that episode where it would just the fucking world came crashing down for me. It was avoiding social events like
can.
big, not necessarily parties or like house parties or like even quinceañeras and or weddings and shit like that. It was like big events like a
Concerts.
fucking concert and circus and shit like that and all that. Yeah, I remember one time we went to the concert, not paying attention to it back when me and you went back in the day. I was fucking stressed out like a motherfucker back then.
Really?
I was going through it. Yeah, I had to like I was thinking it was like the fact that I didn't eat or that I fucking something like that, and I was all fucking like jittery and like I rushed to get a coke and I was all that shit, and it was like a big thing for me to do that. But I was still pushing myself through because I don't think I had gotten that big of a deal. But later on, when I was already like in my 20s, early 20s, it became a bigger deal. So then it was just avoiding it. Like I went to a bar one time with Celia and I had a fucking panic attack and like just what the fuck. And then other events like that too that were bigger. When I used to have season tickets for the Raiders and I used to have panic attacks at the fucking game. And I was still sometimes I couldn't handle it and I had to walk away like I don't know, before the game was over at a random time or all that. And I had to have like a little bit of a ritual and all that shit. And sometimes it'd just be overwhelming. So this, for some reason, big events used to do that for me, and um, still kind of do, but I'm still working on it. It feels a lot better now, even when I
Hmm.
do them now. There's still a little bit of it, but I'm aware of it now. So I'm like, okay, this is what's happening. You're safe, kind of thing. Go from there. So I definitely avoided a lot of those things. And I like
Yeah.
even some friends were like, well, you don't do shit and frustrated with me and shit like that. But I never opened up with that. Like you don't want to go out, you don't want to go to those places or things like that. So I definitely did avoid all that
Yeah.
to try to not feel those feelings.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because they're uncomfortable. They're very very uncomfortable. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm like right now um in a place where I'm like, do I have anxiety overall? And I'm like bargaining with myself almost. Like the more and more I sit with it, I don't necessarily have like the pacing back and forth or like the um anxiety, how like the textbook anxiety, how it would manifest. But like the more and more I think about it, I'm like, well, we do think a lot, like what my brain did this morning. Right, my sleeping patterns aren't oh, because your sleep can also be disturbed. um they're not the best. Like there is this sensation that I always have to do something. Like even if I
Mm,
just like sit down on the couch, I'm like, you could be doing this, you could be doing that, but you haven't done this, you haven't done that. So like resting for me is very hard. Um, so the more and more I think about it, I'm like, bitch, you might have anxiety. You might be experiencing anxiety constantly. So
mm,
I'm grappling with that a little bit.
mm. That's interesting. Yeah. Uh, I don't know. I actually don't also sit not doing shit, but I think just because who does that shit and sits there not doing anything? Well, that was also a symptom for me when I'm just sitting there not doing shit. I would catch that there's something wrong when I'm not doing anything. Like that would be by
Mm.
the behavioral wise. I'll just be like, if I'm just sitting there not doing shit, that means my mind is fucking going. So when I started doing more things, it meant for me like that I was already feeling a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, definitely, it's still well, like you said at the beginning, it's still very normal and shit like that to have those things, and because we wouldn't be safe without it, and it's all part of the experience of life and all that shit. Um, yeah, I think to me sometimes when I do get thrown off is when I'm not like I'm so used to like my schedule is like work on the pictures, work on whatever the podcast in the afternoon, and I do my gaming stuff for a little bit or shit like that. Or sometimes like a new game came out, so I've been gaming a lot this last couple of days too, after doing all the work stuff. When I can't do that shit, it just makes me feel like fuck. Like, what do I do? Because my form of entertainment is gaming, and when gaming is not available to entertain myself, I'm like, I don't really watch movies a lot. I don't watch shows. I don't do shit. So when I go visit somebody and they're just like, "Oh, let's watch a movie or do this or do that," it's just like, I don't do this shit. Like, I'm usually just gaming, you know. So like, this I kind of feel myself lost, and I do catch sometimes that I feel that it feels weird not to be doing that sometimes, you know, because I'm
Mhm.
completely fine with talking or having conversations and shit like that, and I haven't able to play. But when it comes to you trying to entertain me with other shit, it's just like, well, that's usually not what I do. I'm not interested. It has to be like a really good movie that I'm looking forward to, otherwise, or a show. Otherwise, I'm
Noted.
like, nah, I'm good.
Noted for when you come here. Um, yes. So, and like you said, anxiety is part of our day to day life because it's an emotion that helps us catch threats. Like that is its function. If
Mm,
we look at our ancestry, caveman, right? Like before, like indigenous humans, they needed to that anxiety because they literally were fighting against animals that they needed to kill. And if that anxiety wasn't there, their survival rate would go down, right? Like the way I explain it to my clients is like, okay, let's say right now this is just a door,
mm,
and I feel safe enough to look behind that door and nothing's happening, right? But if oh yeah, there is a little tiger, Chanchito's there. But if like indigenous people back in the day, if they were to open up the door or go out of their shelter, be like, okay, what is the worst possible case scenario that can happen? What's going to be behind that so that I can prepare so I can have better chances of survival?
mm-hmm.
Our brains haven't really caught up with us
Yeah.
with all this modern life that we have, so they still have very similar um, functioning in terms of threats. And we've talked about with the documentary Paper Tigers, right, of the difference between a real tiger and a paper tiger. That's when the brain gets hijacked, and when you're like constant worry about a threat that isn't necessarily real, like recording a podcast episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to go into more, I know what you meant, but just to make it even more like clear, I guess. Um, like before we had houses that were made of fucking wood and brick or whatever the fuck, you know, there was like you just live under a fucking tree. You built a little tent of like maybe some kind of cloth or some shit. So
Mm-hmm.
like you always had to be aware of, you know, fucking lions, tigers, fucking crocodiles, any kind of fucking animal that could literally fucking eat you.
Mm-hmm.
So our
Mm-hmm.
brains are were built to make us survive those kind of scenarios, right? Like you never know,
Yeah.
you didn't have a moment of peace almost, you can say, throughout the day, because how the fuck are you gonna fall asleep knowing that something might pop off? You know, maybe somebody had to be on guard all the time or all that shit. So you can see you're being super anxious and super hyped up and aware of everything so that you wouldn't get eaten or anything bad would happen and shit like that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I hope that makes it a little bit clear on that. So then our brains haven't evolved into that shit yet to know like, hey, those dangers don't really exist on a daily basis for most of us. There's other kinds, but it's nowhere near as bad as it used to be. So that's where our brain fucking flips out when we have something traumatic happen and then thinks we have to be aware of it because, you know, and it makes it so hyped up.
Yeah. Yeah. um so when you have, now we get into like the criteria. um the excessive worry, it needs to be present for at least 6 months for it to be anxiety disorder, like generalized anxiety disorder. And it there is this you cannot control the worry. Like you
Hmm.
can just cannot get it under wraps. um so those are the two main ones. And like we talked about, like the physical symptoms that come with it, like the dizziness, the sweaty, um, the racing thoughts, the fast heart rate. um, that goes into the criteria.
Hmm. So can you give us an example of what that would look like maybe on the worry on the long side?
On the
Like just on the extensive worrying and what maybe an example of what the worrying looks like.
um I think if I get very honest about, like, I probably do have anxiety. Um it is this, for me, something that constantly worries me is like I'm going to miss something. Like there's something that I need to do that I'm not doing. And that happens almost every day.
Hmm.
Like it's just constantly like, did I do everything? Okay. What else do I have to do? Like it's always, there's always this question in the back of my my mind telling
Hmm.
me like, but are you sure that you did everything that you were supposed to do today? Um so that's, I mean, it's not such a big worry, but depending, now we get into maybe social anxiety, there's phobias, there's OCD, obsessive compulsive disorders, right? Like PTSD. That those are like the subcategories. There are people that experience anxiety related to one thing specifically, like for example for you, right, of like I can't necessarily like go out, or I
Hmm.
can't exercise because then I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Hmm.
I can't go out because I'm gonna have a panic attack. Like those are the excessive worries that are more, I don't want to say worse, but that can exacerbate or make the anxiety even higher, if that makes sense. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
for me, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's what, just going into what you mentioned, like yeah, that's what I had, right? That was another one of like the exercising stuff. It was like, oh, I can't. So throughout my life, I guess you can count that as a long worry, right? Oh, I'm afraid of for some reason I develop a fear of heart attack at some point in my life, and I was like, oh, I can't do this. Or anytime that my heart would race a lot, I'd be like, oh, that, or the palpitations from anxiety would create
mhm,
those kind of things, and then I would try and go exercise, and something would happen, and I'd be like, oh my god, it's fucking happening, stop, like don't do that shit, like like I obviously wouldn't say that, but that's what I would do subconsciously, I guess, or whatever, and then just stop the behavior of that, so that did prevent me for a long time from doing that, and didn't allow me to exercise, so
yeah,
that was one that like was affecting me throughout life, I guess. And if I would have had more awareness of it, addressing it earlier would have been a way to go about that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. What are the categories again? Maybe we could just give examples of those
Of the
different
criteria.
types. Yeah, the different types. You
Oh,
said
the
phobia.
oh, okay. So is the generalized anxiety disorder, which is the one we're talking about.
Hmm.
There's panic disorder,
Hmm.
um, and that is when literally out of nowhere you have like a panic attack. So a panic attack, what it looks like is the many people, I've never experienced one, but people that have experienced them, and you maybe are a better human to explain what a panic attack is to us. So
Yeah. You want me to go to that?
go for it.
It feels like you're gonna die. If you ever gotten into an accident, if you ever had some kind of huge threat where your adrenaline shoots up through the roof, if you think like that's the way that I can think about it, I guess. If you ever got in a car accident, if you ever had maybe, I don't know, shit, a gun pulled out on you, if you feel like your life was in danger for whatever reason, that feeling that you guys can, listeners can be like, yeah, I've had that feeling once. That shit happens on,
Mhm,
so at random times. It could be, it happens, or it can get triggered by things, or it can just get triggered by anxiety that creeps up slowly, 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 and then it blows up. And what that feels like is, for me, when it would come, it would be that thing of the the heat, the hot flash and the stomach, and then it would just then create that shit of like, oh, it's fucking happening. Because my thing was like almost like a fear of panic attack is what I had, so that created more panic attacks. So then be like, oh shit, it's happening again, and I would start worrying, and I was like, fuck, and then you start freaking the fuck out, like getting super super anxious, like something's gonna happen, like it's happening again. I'm so scared, I'm so scared. I'm gonna die, my heart's going up, like you're fucking because my understanding is that whenever you have that, your brain remembers it so that it knows what the fuck to protect yourself from. So then I
Mhm.
feel like every single one of your senses is like on fucking 1,000. Like you hear everything, you pay attention to everything, you get like overwhelmed by sounds, fucking thing. You feel like super, super like it's weird. It's not. It's like people used to say out of it, but now that I'm thinking about it, it's like you're so in tune with everything that it's fucking overwhelming, right? Like it's super overwhelming in this shit. Uh, so yeah, like my breath is going like super fast. I can't catch my breath. I want to fucking move. I want to run. I want to like just get the fuck out of whatever the hell I'm going there. And um eventually, like 5 maybe 10 minutes later, it just starts going down. Like it doesn't last forever. It's not like a thing that you do. It goes down, and
Mhm.
eventually you start catching your breath a little bit like that. And to me, it was by walking away from the situation, which is the flight thing out of it, and then it would just calm down. But having that fear for me of having it feel that again, because it did feel fucking terrible, is what actually caused more of the panic attacks for me. It wasn't like it wasn't like it was a thought, like slow. It wasn't like I was worried about something specifically happening that wasn't the panic attack that did it. I think the first one that I felt, or the first one that I was aware of that I felt, it was because I was concerned that I was overworking out, that I wasn't eating enough, and then I hadn't eaten. I already had gone to the gym. Then we went to a long walk with my cousins and Celia, and then I was worried about something happening, and something's happening to me. Something's gonna happen to me. Something's gonna happen. And eventually, I had a panic attack. So it was just that shit did happen. But after that, it was just the fear of the panic attack because it feels horrible. Like I said, it feels like you're gonna fucking die.
Mhm.
Everything is everything is fucking super super overhyped.
Yeah.
That's every emotion is every not every emotion, every
The
sense, like
sense.
your hearing, your everything is like that. And then you remember, your brain remembers that fucking situation. So then wherever you have it, it's hard to go back to that shit. So
Mhm.
the one that I was first aware of happened at an In and Out. So for a while, just fucking seeing In and Outs, it was like, oh shit, there's like, oh my god, like there's another In and Out, and then it would just remind me and kind of trigger me a little bit of that.
Yeah.
To the point, at some point I was like, okay. Then I think when I worked at them and they went away, it was and I was able to kind of go put myself in there. I know a couple of times I still feel anxious, but going back to the situation because my brain is like, this is the fucking threat, and associated the threat with In and Out. So
Mhm.
like that's how that. But yeah, they feel terrible. I mean, and I don't want to jump too quickly into solutions, but um nothing, like my therapist reminded me, yes, it feels like shit, but like, did you die kind of shit? Nah, you know,
But
it's
did you
bad.
die?
Yeah, it's kind of like you're still gonna be okay when they happen, because eliminating, not being afraid of them is what completely eliminated them from my life, almost like 100%. Completely saying like, okay, I know this is gonna suck, this is gonna be like, but I survived it, I'm okay. I've experienced it with fucking, I don't know how many times, 30, 40 times in the fucking last like month
Jesus.
or whatever. So then I'll be like, okay, I'm fine, like that, okay, and then push and be brave and just feel them and shit like that, and like you're gonna be okay, and it's just like gone.
Yeah.
Just having
Yeah. Yeah, but panic disorder is like a like a like everything that you just described, but like constantly.
yeah,
Um
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, because I
Um
was, I mean, mine was definitely constant. It wasn't like it was like a thing. When my anxiety was
mhm.
like that, it was like constant. I would be on the verge of having a panic attack, fuck, I don't know, 10, 20 times a day. Like I would just be there, and sometimes I would have it, and then sometimes it would not. Like I don't know what the fuck would happen, that I would just be like, okay, it didn't turn to a panic attack. It was just like a stupid high level of anxiety, but it didn't turn to a panic attack because I know the difference. And then it just stay at a high level of anxiety and maybe dropped a little bit. And then something would trigger again, and it would just go from there. You know? The thing the thing that also, I could be wrong in my awareness, people say that it comes out of nowhere, but I don't believe that, because
Well,
I've triggered them out of my mind, I've triggered them out of my physical sensations, like, right, a physical sensation has triggered it, thoughts have triggered it, certain behaviors have triggered it. So from like when I was studying that, and when people were the therapists were telling me that shit, that it could come out of nowhere, I was like, maybe there's just not enough awareness for people to be telling you that it feels like it comes out of nowhere. But I think for me, it never came out of nowhere. It was
Yeah, I mean,
something that triggered
mhm,
that
mhm.
happening again. It
Yeah.
never just I was just sitting there and like, oh, I'm having a fucking panic attack. Like, nah, there was something that triggered it.
Yeah, I think there is like the
But I
part
could
of
be wrong. I'm an idiot.
you're not an idiot.
I still
Um,
let it grow.
but I guess when they say like out of nowhere, because for example, right now you were describing that like you would start with like levels of anxiety and like it
Hmm.
would go up and then it would turn into a panic attack.
Hmm.
Whereas like for panic disorder, you can, even if it's just like the sensation, the thought, the whatever thing, but you go from that stimuli to like
Yeah,
completely panic attack
yeah,
mode. So it's that the part of like if going from 0 to 100 in like an instant,
yeah.
that's maybe what they're talking about, like it
No,
comes
yeah,
at
that's what I was saying. So the first panic attack, it was the anxiety going up slowly, but then after that, it was just be the like literally the stomach pain would cause a panic attack.
Mhm.
So it would just went like this. There was no in between. There was not going up slowly. It was just like that. So I definitely did have that, and that's what I was saying. Like the first time it was like that, but after that it was just seems like it came out of nowhere. But then after, because I got really fucking good at my awareness of whatever was happening with me, I was able to notice that like this caused it. That even though it was like this, like
Mhm.
something always I knew what my trigger was that
Mm,
led me to do that, even though it was like in a split second, and I went from 0 to 100 like right away.
mm.
So I don't know, but I mean that could be my experience. But I always feel like there was something that triggered it, even though it was just like super super quick.
Yeah.
Like I said, I could be wrong, or it could be a different experience for other people that it just literally comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we really get down to the science of it, like your body is experiencing a threat, so
Yeah.
there's no way that it's just like out of nowhere. Like your body's sensing some type of
Hmm.
threat.
Yeah.
That is why the panic happens. Okay, and then we have the phobias. It could be a phobia of literally anything, like
Hmm.
anything. There's people that have phobias to dogs, to spiders, to dark rooms, to
Sharks,
public speaking, shark, like anything. It could be anything.
frogs.
Um,
Shout out to my compadre who's afraid of frogs or was afraid of frogs.
Rocks.
Mhm. Frogs.
Oh, frogs. Okay, that's a new one. I've never heard that.
Yeah, so you can tease him about his frog phobia
Okay. All right.
next time you see him. Yeah,
I
but
mean,
people have them of all kinds of stuff. Like
yes.
you already mentioned the thing with the a lot of the circles, right? Like the spider,
Oh
and
my
all
god.
that shit.
Yes, my
Like
sister
what is that
sent me
called?
a trypophobia. Oh,
Trypophobia. Yeah, I used to
I don't.
be
I'm
afraid of
I'm
dogs.
sure there is something linked to survival, because she literally sent me a fucking image yesterday. I hate you, Irene. Um, she was just like, "Have a blessed day, y'all," and sends a fucking picture. I'm just like, it just my even thinking about it right now, like my body just gets like chills and I get grossed out. I don't know. I don't know what the science behind it,
Yeah, I
but
don't have that shit. I'm the opposite. I look at it sometimes when I want to be a fucking weirdo. I look at like how dogs have a bunch of those shit that have worms in them, and then they fucking squeeze them out, and like worms come out of that shit. And then it gets to too much, and I get overwhelmed. I'm like, ah! But sometimes I just me da curiosidad just to like the squeezing and the shit, and there's like worms that come out of like so your dog can get a shit ton of holes, and every little hole is like a worm that pops out of it. They squeeze that shit, and like a worm comes out of it, and it's on animals and shit like that.
I
But
hate
it's fucking
right now.
it's overwhelming. Well, that's an example, right? If you're paying attention to what she's reacting to right now, that's how people react to phobias. Like you're literally grossed out and going through some shit because what I described.
Hold
Right.
on.
Think of happy things. But yeah, you can be afraid of anything. uh there was in my therapy group, there was somebody that was afraid of like driving over a bridge, and somehow bridges would cause some kind of anxiety.
Mm,
um I mentioned some people that I know are afraid of sharks and spiders, like you said, kind of the common ones, but it could be like literally fucking anything.
anything.
Because you just reminded me of some other shit when I was having high levels of anxiety. I can look at an object when I was so fucked, and I can make that object like trigger anxiety and make me like I'll be scared of that object. Like I was that fucked that I could just look at any random thing and focus on that thing, and maybe because it wasn't the thing, it was obviously my mind, but I would become afraid of that specific thing. Literally, just an
What the
object.
fuck?
Literally, I could create. Cause like almost I could create a phobia just by looking at it if I wanted to. It'd just be that because I was so fucking scared of every single. I was scared of everything, so then therefore anything would fucking trigger the shit, you know. But yes, it could be anything.
Yes.
People are afraid of yeah, literally anything you can think of that you see
Anything.
and you cannot see any object, any kind of shit. It can do
Anything.
that.
Yes.
Yes, where you still shake out your anxiety by moving.
Yes. I literally got nauseous because, like, as we were talking about it, I'm like, okay, now I'm in the groove of things. Like, we're actually talking about it. Like, where like my hands are not sweating anymore. And then we started saying that shit, and everything just came back. Like, woof.
Yeah, I know how
So
that feels.
yes. Okay. Obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD. This is when um people now and we're not gonna get into the difference, but there's personality disorder, um, and there is the compulsive, like, there is obsessive personality disorder,
Okay.
and I'm not going to explain that, um, and it's different than obsessive compulsive disorder,
Okay.
um, but with obsessive compulsive disorder, people tend to have like rituals, um, about because and again it's linked to fear of something. Like, if I don't, like, when we're talking about like people that check like the doorknobs like 20 times, check their stoves, or whatever ritual they they have, um it is to try to lessen that anxiety, that fear of whatever it is that they're fearing. um so that is what OCD is.
Tell me if I'm wrong, but kind of from what I understood it, or kind of how I make sense of it, is like you're overprotecting,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Like you're overprotecting something so that something happened to you. I don't know, like you said with the stove, the fucking house burned down because you left the fucking stove on accidentally. So then for the rest of your life you're overdoing it, and you have to double, triple, quadruple fucking check that the stove is not on. So then you become obsessed at making sure that that's not on. And that's kind of like how I did it. Or like the one that's, I guess, common would be the cleaning one, right? Like for OCD, where people just want to just fucking clean all the time, and everything has to be stupid clean because they don't want to get sick, or because whatever reasons, or so become super obsessed with like having a stupidly highly cleaned place,
Yes. Yeah, that is it is very, very common. Um Sometimes the trigger, like, it doesn't have to be like so cut and clear type of thing.
Hmm.
Like, many people start having those rituals, but they don't necessarily have like the house burned down or something. Sometimes
Hmm.
the the association doesn't even make sense sometimes, but yes, it is overprotecting something. And then we
Hmm.
have
I have,
PTSD.
a, I have an example before you move on of
Okay.
something that I experienced at some point in my life that I was like, oh, this person has OCD, and then that person, or she didn't even realize that it was, but it was the first time that I experienced it to that level, where there was such a concern for like dirt and like a mess and all that stuff,
Mm.
that she was like super protected to the point that like she had covers, like plastic covers for her toilet, like plastic covers for shit. Like we were doing some kind of work, and there might have been some dust that would fall in the room even though the room was empty, and she wanted us to like cover that stuff. Like she didn't allow us to like go into the bathroom at all, like to use the bathroom. Like, nah, you guys gotta go over there. It was just an extreme. She we were doing a job for her house, and she literally can do the job next to us because she researched the shit out of every single detail of every single material of every single tool that we were using, and then checked every single. We were doing tile, so then she checked like every single groove to make sure that it was like even after we fucking had installed it, and nitpicked at every little single fucking thing on every single square of tile to do that, and it just didn't. Well, that's not part of the thing, but like it just didn't working out because we just like, yeah, this, you have an impossibly high standard of stuff and you're never going to be happy with the stuff. But there was like to that level, like we just showed up and there was like every little thing you can possibly look at, it was like a piece of tape that was there, like things that you had to like barely like turn and look and see like that. So then I'm just like, damn, that's fucking exhausting. Like that's exhausting to be living like that, to be able to put that much effort into the research, into every little detail around the house and every little thing, to that. And she did mention, but I didn't catch it when we were doing the consultation stuff, because now with my photography stuff and any other business, if I catch something, I'm like, nah, you're not fucking worth it, I'm not gonna go to the shit. But I didn't catch it during the time. But she mentioned how she would never had a contract that she was happy with, and like somehow that didn't trigger like, oh, that's a fucking red flag for that. But it
Mhm.
was like that. Imagine how hard it is to be checking everything, to be
Mhm.
cleaning every little thing that happens. Since she put on gloves to pick up a leaf, to put the leaf in the fucking
Garbage?
in the garbage, in the fucking recycle bin. Like literally put on gloves to pick it up and go sit there. I was like, damn. Like I felt bad for her and this stuff.
Mhm.
And it's just the now I'm very on this hype of the awareness of
Mhm.
like I say, anything that I say now, anything that I think I believe, I'm like, but I could be wrong, because I just know that my level of awareness cannot be as great as somebody that has put more effort or that knows more shit about that or whatever. So then I had a conversation with her at some point. I was like, oh yeah, my fucking have a podcast on fucking mental health, all that stuff. And then she was like, oh yeah, my husband has anxiety and all this stuff. But thankfully, like me, I don't have anything. And I'm like, puta madre. Like you literally have no awareness of that stuff. So like that's crazy. So yes, my one advice or one piece of advice: just always be open to the fact that you may not know what the fuck you have. Please, like, don't say I don't need therapy, I don't have OCD, I don't have anxiety, I don't have depression. To your knowledge, right now in this second, you might not have it, but because I think part of therapy is like the awareness part, no?
Mhm.
Like the part that you made people aware of the shit that they
Mhm.
have, the
Mhm.
things that they carry that they're not aware of,
Yeah.
you know. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
tantrum.
Um, okay. And then we have PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. That is when there is a big event, a traumatic event that you went through.
Mhm.
So then your body kind of gets like almost like stuck there. So it's very common with veterans, um, where like the hyper awareness that comes about because your life has been in danger. Um, so then after that event, your brain's just like looking for those signals, whatever it is that happened in that event. Your That is why like fireworks are very triggering for those people, loud noises, because that's what they had to deal with, like when they're in combat. So in like day-to-day life, their body's just constantly trying to survive that.
Hmm. So one example, I guess, you can tell me if it's not correct. Like I almost fucking, we almost died one time in a car accident. Pretty much, like I lost control. I was going like 95, and I lost like the bumper or the, I don't know if it's a bumper, whatever, hit the fucking tire on my own car. So then it popped into the tire, like it poked into the tire. So then I lost control in a bump, and like I had to fucking hold it with both hands, and I turned and I was gonna flip. Like I was gonna flip going 95 on the fucking freeway, and then I somehow just some way pulled it, and I managed to like turn it so it wouldn't flip. And then like a semi truck just passed right next to us in the thing. Like I remember like honking and going through the shit. And after that, I was like, fuck. Like I didn't even, I was shaking the whole time. Like I had to finish driving. We were coming over here to LA, and like I couldn't, my legs were shaking, all that stuff. And then it was like, fuck, I have to drive. Like I have to do that. And like I think through that, even now, like I'm much more obviously aware of it, but like there was always like a level of anxiety of driving, because it would just, I feel like it remind me of that shit, and it made me change the behavior also to be more careful. But it was something that I constantly thought about. I dreamed about it as well, you know, like I dream
Mm.
about not being able to hit the brake. Like I had a constant dream for a little bit where I'm driving and the brake pads won't work, and I had to fucking be all scared because the brake is not working, you know. So I don't know if that kind of.
Mm, I mean, we would have to go down on the criteria for it, but uh, PTSD, when there is a trigger, like you feel like your body, like that's the flashback is one of the criteria. Like your body like literally feels that you are right there, and then again.
Mm, okay. Yeah, so no, then that's not it. Because
Yeah.
I
So
don't
I
think
mean,
I've
like,
ever felt it was just high level anxiety, but it never
yeah.
actually got to that level.
Hmm. Yeah. Um. Okay. All right. So those are like subcategories um of anxiety. Overall, at some point in their life, 31% of people go through anxiety at some point in their life. That's a lot.
Go to like the worrying for all those things or fits the criteria, right? Because we all have anxiety on the regular day,
Yes.
on
The
the regular
disorder.
basis. The disorder
The
itself.
disorder. Yeah.
Well, 31% again, I go back to the same shit of the fucking awareness. Because how are they
Yeah.
serving this? How do you survey this? If you're asking people, then what, you're trusting that they have awareness to be able to tell you that they have it or not. And if I was able to live for 28 fucking years having it, and I've been able to tell that I had it, then somebody would fucking ask me and I'd be like, nope, I don't have that shit. Somebody could have surveyed me and be like, nah. I
Yeah.
want to say that the number should
Might
be
be higher.
way, way fucking higher than that.
Yeah.
Just because, once again, people don't have the awareness to be able to say, oh, this is what's happening or that, you know? Who knows how they did that?
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and the system that gets hijacked is because the amygdala is or survival response center where our fears live, where our core memories live. So that's the part that is affected when it comes to anxiety. So again, normal, not normal, um, emotion or anxiety as an emotion is going to happen at some point. So then your amygdala gets activated, and that's when the physical symptoms come. Oh my god, sorry.
How dare you cough? So I'm being sarcastic, by the way. You're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna cough.
I was like, oh, I didn't know I wasn't allowed to. Like, oh, now I know. Um, yeah, so your amygdala gets activated, your flight fight responds, your physical symptoms come about, and then there is two circuits that kind of get activated. So there is your anterior cingulate cortex, which then makes you hyper aware of like, let me pay attention to what could be the danger.
Hmm.
Um, so then that exacerbates or raises the anxiety. And there's your prefrontal cortex, which is like your logical center, if you will. So then that one kind of like um, tempers the anxiety or makes the anxiety go down. So then amygdala gets activated. One of them is like, oh, we need to be super aware of this. And then the prefrontal cortex kind of assesses like, okay, do we not? So that's
Mm.
regular functioning. With anxiety disorder, the amygdala, it's constantly getting activated. It's just like um, hyper stimulated, and the prefrontal cortex has a very hard time discerning um, if we should be anxious or not. And the interior cingulate cortex is like aware of everything all the time.
Hmm.
So chemically, your brain is like
Yeah,
not
definitely.
functioning correctly.
my amygdala was turned on 1,000% of the time with that shit.
Yes.
Because I'm telling you, anything would trigger it. Anything would give me anxious. Any kind of thought. That's one thing that, like, I mean, we are talking about anxiety, so give me the fucking time to talk about that shit. Anything would fucking trigger anxiety for me. Every single anything that could happen, any thought, anything that I saw on TV, any fucking behavior from anybody, any kind of shit, it was just so easy to activate it and be on that shit 100% of the time. Like, I describe it as I woke up and I had peace for 2 seconds until I realized that I was awake, and then it was like, boom, turn it on, and it was fucking on 100% of the day until I went to fucking sleep again, and then I woke up, and then for a split second, and boom, and that's how it was for shit. I don't know, 3 months maybe, until like at some point, um, that one time that I caught a break when I caught myself listening to the radio instead of like having something on. And that's the first time that I felt, or that I was aware of, that I was able to turn off, or that I was able to be like at peace and I wasn't like hyped, like
Mm.
super on 100% of the time. That's why I was
Mm.
so fucking exhausted when I think about it. Just
Yeah.
sitting there, not doing shit, but somehow feeling exhausted,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Absolutely.
it does feel like that. Like, you're right. I mean, it's like on 100% of the time,
All the
constantly,
time.
constantly, constantly, all the fucking time, and any single thing would do it. Anything would trigger. Yeah, it fucking felt horrible. Like, now that I'm thinking about it. I like remembering, so that I'm thankful for the shit and how far I've come, But like, to have it on all the time, it was terrible to have to be afraid of everything, to think that everything was gonna hurt you, like this thought, and what does this thought mean? And then you fucking, like, you had a random thought, and then it would fucking like spiral into like a fucking crazy as, like, at some point I was thinking about being a priest, and I'm not even fucking like religious, and like that crossed my mind, and it got into some shit, and I ended up there, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, how the fuck did you end up there? Like, but it was like that, and just having like a crisis about every single thing, and one little shit would lead into like a million things, and just spiral over some crazy ass shit. Like, I was like, what the fuck? This doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But
Si
yeah, it was.
andabas grave, because for you to think of being a priest, like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've had like just another examples, like about cutting, like shaving my beard and shit. Like, sometimes, like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking get the impulse to shave it and cut it off and just do some shit. But what does that mean? And what is the shit and everything? And it was just exhausting to do that. Which now I'm thinking of people that I know, and I can see that shit. I can see how they attach one thing, and they're so concerned about, like, oh, this is gonna happen and this is gonna happen, and then this is gonna treat to this and leads to that. Check your anxiety, people.
yes.
Check those thoughts that race, and then you end up creating a life fucking 30 years from now that hasn't even fucking happened yet. Relax.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Pay attention to any of the symptoms that we're saying here. Different reasons why anxiety can be triggered. It can be biological factors, like people in your lineage have anxiety, so then it gets passed down, like chemical imbalances. But there's also environmental factors. So I mean, but this is where I have like issues, like I said it in my last episode with the depression, that I have issues with the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Manual for Mental Health Disorders. And I have issues with it because if like all of these things don't happen in a vacuum. Um like mental health is like very related to like capitalism, right? Like it is very political. So environmental factors, like right now we have every fucking reason to be anxious, to be depressed, to be hyper aware, to be on edge because fuck.
Mhm.
Because fuck. Um I blame the United States for that. Anyway, let's move on. But environmental factors, stress from work, relationships, major life changes, capitalism, um, can also trigger it. Lifestyle, health, health habits. If if you're not sleeping, if you're not eating okay, if you're
Sleeping is a big one.
huh?
Give me one. Give me sleeping is a big one for me. Give me 2 nights of 5 hours of sleep, and I can fucking feel the anxiety and the depression, like right here, like knocking in my fucking, like knocking on the door, and then it creeps up, and then it's like, "What's up?" And then I'm like, "Okay, how you doing? Cool." Boom, closes the door again. So I'm like, I know that I become so irritable, and I
Mhm.
become so like anxious and like so fucking sad sometimes that I'm like, okay, I need to fucking sleep. All right, cool. That's what the fuck is happening, you know. But I have the awareness to just be like, okay, you're fucking anxious. You're feeling a little bit like you used to feel when you're depressed. It's cool, you know. You're good. You know what it feels like. You know that. You know what's triggering it is you haven't probably slept. So let's try to work on that and figure that out and boom. But
Yeah.
that's like I talked about before. That's the first thing they taught us in the group therapy. Is like your fucking sleep is so fucking important. So be able to fucking rest and feel
Yes.
better.
Yes.
Yeah, but you too, you got to give yourself some grace because you're having great days and you're having bad days. Before you had bad days all the fucking time. So that's progress.
Yes. Yes. I did 2 days ago. 2 days ago. Was it 2 days ago? That I I slept through the night. It was beautiful. I woke up and it was daylight and I'm like, "Oh my god. Oh my god." It was great. It was great.
Yeah.
I want to have more of those days. It's getting better. It is getting better.
Yep.
Okay. But not all hope is lost. There's ways that you can manage your anxiety. Um we I think by the time this one airs, the coping tools one that we did should be out.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can go back to that episode of coping tools, grounding techniques, but we'll talk about them a little bit here. So breathing exercises, if baby breathing or belly breathing, I don't know where in our life, but um, a lot of us breathe with our chest. Like, so that is not deep breathing. That is not giving enough oxygen to your body. um, if you can, put your hand in on one hand on your chest, another one on the belly, and when you're breathing, picture like a balloon. Imagine you have a balloon in your tummy, and that's the one that you have to inflate. Your chest hand should not move. um, so you can do box breathing where you inhale for 4. You kind of draw like a square in front of you, whether it's with your head, with your eyes, with your hand. Um, so you inhale for 4 seconds, you hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, um, and you hold for 4 seconds. That's box breathing. The 4-7-8 method that we already talked about. Breathe in for
Hmm.
4, hold your breath for 7 seconds, and then breathe out for 8 seconds. Practice a lot of deep breathing. Grounding techniques we mentioned the 5 4 3 2 1. 5 things you see, 4 things you feel, 3 things you hear, 2 things you smell, 1 thing you taste, because that brings you it's a fear that isn't necessarily present, so we need to make sure that your body comes to the here and now, to the present. So use your senses to bring you down from that. um,
Hmm.
Another thing is like progressive muscle relaxation. I don't think we never really talked about that, but you go through different muscles in your body and you tense them and then you release. Right? So it could be like, okay, shoulders up and release. Hands out, tense and release.
Hmm.
Tummy, tense and release. And you go through that with your whole body. Those are some of the things that you can do on your own. Obviously, if because is not just the physical sensation, it's coming from somewhere. If it's an excessive worry, there is a fear, and that is why you're experiencing anxiety. So then in order for it to become better, we need to get to the root problem, which is like, what is it that your body is actually afraid of? What is the threat to your body? And that is when the long term management comes about. Go to
Yes.
therapy.
Yeah.
Go to
That's what I was gonna say. As much as those things can help, that didn't do shit for me because it didn't explain why I was having them. I
Mhm.
needed to know why. I needed to figure out and understand why the fuck is this happening in the shit. So all those things can help you better and feel better in the moment, like a Tylenol, like a fucking thing, like some kind of thing that will help you. Then it definitely help you in the moment. But I just wanted to know why the fuck they were happening to begin with. And once I figured out why they were happening, then I was able to understand that, and then they went away because I was like, oh, because then I was able to attack why they were happening and not necessarily just react in the moment and they're happening. So yeah, I never really, yeah, I want to say that I almost skipped that part in my healing. Like it's something that I actually never did, and I was like, okay, this is cool. I understand that this makes me feel better now, but I want to know why. So like I never really tried a lot of those stuff when it comes to that, to the breathing stuff and all that. It was
Mhm.
just like, okay, figure out why. You understand
Mhm.
how this works and it makes you feel
Mhm.
better, and yeah, cool, and do that. I mean, kinda, I'm almost kind of bullshitting too because I did do some meditation that did help me feel better, and that's kind of part of what that is. When I was struggling, I did just stop and then just like, okay, your mind is racing, do some breathing and some meditation. So that did help a little bit. But it wasn't something that I spend a lot of effort and a lot of time into learning and figuring out and doing that. It was just like, okay, well, why though? Why is this happening? This is a thing. And like you said, that's when you got to figure out the shit of like, that's when you got to go and actually do the fucking work, do the scary stuff and figure out why. And look at the shit that you've been trying to avoid, right?
Yeah.
It's just the example of the heart attack. I know I told the story, but maybe new listeners or whatever. I did an exercise because I was gonna have a heart attack. So then I started running again, and then I got palpitations, and I was scared, and I was trying to avoid it, and then I was like, nah, fuck that. Let me go get checked out by a doctor. Doctor's like, you're fine, and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. It's my fucking anxiety then. So then I started running, and then I was like, oh, I'm feeling anxious again. I was like, I'm not fucking stopping. You're gonna die in this fucking thing, or you're gonna realize that there's no fucking anxiety. There's no threat to you. So then I ran, and that shit went away, and now I can run at peace. As I understand, it's very extreme, but
Yes.
that's facing the fear fucking fully head on to the shit and be
Yes.
like, run. And then one day in a matter of fucking 2 minutes of battling with my mind and telling myself I'm not stopping no matter what the fuck happens, the fear is not gonna control me because there's nothing wrong with you. Finished it like that. And that shit doesn't even cross my mind anymore. But yeah, you've made me
That
realize
is a
at the
very
time
Steve way to do things, y'all.
very extreme.
It if you come to me as a therapist, I'm not going to be like, just fucking run and just fucking do it.
I
It's
wouldn't do that to clients either. I would just put it out there to be like, that's how I did it. And the point is that facing the fears, you don't want to face them de un chingadazo like that and be all crazy or be so direct like me. But that at the same time, avoiding that fear for so long fucked me up tremendously.
Mhm.
Maybe now not looking at it and being so direct about it that doesn't work for most people, but
Yes.
having the thing of like, okay, I'm scared of this, and be like, okay, that's my sign. Whenever you feel scared, be like, that's the sign that you need to pursue that shit, and go in that direction instead of going away, because
Yes.
you can say that's the fucking thing that causes it, right? Like even when I was saying about the sleeping, I don't want to feel, I can't, like, I'm like, okay, I'm having anxiety, fuck, why do I feel like this? I don't want to feel like this. And then I catch myself like, hey, relax, fool, fucking allow yourself to feel it.
Mhm.
It's okay for you to feel it. And then it makes it go away. So instead of running away from it, I run to it and I fucking embrace it. And then it just goes away because I just embrace the feeling. You're literally walking or moving, going into the feeling of the shit that you're scared of and allowing yourself to feel it.
Yes.
Which that was the biggest battle for me right now, wanting to feel it and
Yeah,
then
because it
doing
is uncomfortable. It like physically it is it's very, very uncomfortable. Um,
it. Yeah.
okay. So, yes, practicing mindfulness meditation, we do have a body scan meditation um, that you can listen to
Mhm.
here. Um, support community. reach out.
Hmm.
Please, please, please reach out. And if you are into that, which is also okay, you can do medication. It's an option, if you want to do it, because again, sometimes there are chemical imbalances in your brain that doesn't matter how much meditation you do and stuff like that. Like, it can be a great aid, for getting your chemical balance imbalances and balanced again. So but talk to your doctors if you can. Go to a psychiatrist, to a specialized human, because I know that PCPs are just like, oh, here, just take this. But I would strongly recommend going to an actual psychiatrist, a person that specializes in that, not just a primary care physician. Um, and
Yeah.
don't rely on the medication. Like, do, whether it's therapy, meditation, something else that to go hand in hand with that.
Hmm. Yeah, because that was my experience, right? When I told my doctors, like, "Oh, here, take
Mhm.
the fuck," and I was like, "Chill, bitch, chill." Like, get me to the thing first, because I already knew, and I had the
Yes.
yeah, I already knew that is well. I don't know from my perspective, and I guess we can talk about it a little bit. It was just like, okay, this is like something that you almost is experimental. They don't even know how if it's gonna affect you. You might have to be on it for life, and it's something that is not easy to play with when it comes to that medication. It could have symptoms and all that shit. So then, as bad as I was struggling, I was like, nah, fucking send me to a therapist first, and then we'll go from there.
Hmm.
Because it's again the same thing. Unless you have that chemical imbalance, you taking the medicine is just stopping the symptom. It's just like your breathing. It's just like other things that you talked about, but it's not addressing why. It's not addressing that. It's not
Yeah.
fucking giving you a solution. It's just making you feel better at that moment.
Es un curita. It's just a
Mhm.
band-aid. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So if you need help finding a therapist, if this episode gives you a sense of like, holy shit, I might be experiencing anxiety, please reach out to us. We've talked about therapist directories. You can use Psychology Today. You can use Latinx Therapy. Um, there's another one that I can't think of right now, but um, there are therapists that specialize in anxiety, that will help you. My best advice will, because I'm super biased, um, is find yourself an experiential therapist that will help you sit with the uncomfortable emotion.
Yep. I literally did that with one of my coaching clients yesterday.
Mm.
Hey, you gotta sit on that pain, bro. You gotta sit on that pain.
Mhm.
You fucked up, and that pain that you know that you created will hopefully help you not make the same mistake and not cause pain again. But you gotta sit on that fucking feeling. Like, don't move on. Don't say I realize I fucked up. No, sit in that fucking feeling. Sit in that pain. Sit in
Yes.
that awareness that you fucked up.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yes.
feeling it like always. Feeling your shit is
Just
important,
feel
and
it.
it's the most important shit you
Feel
can
it.
probably do.
I
Just
know.
feel it.
I know.
Cool. We done
Yes. We are done. Thank
now. We
you.
now that we're changing it up. Our
Okay.
goal is to create a safe space for exploring mental health topics, sharing stories, and learning strategies for well being, fostering empathy, understanding growth, and most importantly, love. With that said, send us an email, mindfulpodcastliving@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions, if you have any comments, any feedback for us, if you want to be a guest, or if you want to go into the Instagram group that we have going, let us know. We'll be happy to add you. You can just send us your Instagram handle. I think we don't even have to follow each other. If you want to just, be more private, you can be in the group and you don't have to be following me or you or Norma or whatever. And lastly, Norma's a fucking therapist.
I
Reach out to
am.
her if you need it. I'm working on the coaching stuff. So, like always, we're here for you guys. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
Yeah.